really excited to be here, and what we'll be talking about today is how to lock a party from a sales perspective. So how to drive sales and boost customer success at your event. And it'll be a little bit of a back and forth between Jim and I. We're going to each present kind of from our own perspectives. Jim will be, of course, talking from the sales perspective, so how salespeople should be thinking about their event strategy and best practices around events, and then I'll be coming at it from a marketer's perspective. And, you know, one of our key themes is really how to align the two and how to create stronger alignment around marketing and sales at events. And sorry, there's a ton of feedback on the line, so I don't know if someone needs to mute their line. But anyway, with that being said, Jim's going to kick off the conversation for us, and there should be some time at the end for some questions. So if you have questions, please feel free to submit them using the chat area in your GoToWebinar screen, and Jim and I will both be covering those. So Jim, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Courtney.
Awesome. Hi. Okay, cool. Awesome. So I'm going to hand it over to you, and thanks everyone for joining us today.
All right, great. Thanks, Courtney. And as Courtney explained, you know, I think what we want to do is take a bit of a sales angle today on the events, which is a little bit different because, you know, typically what we see is this falls into marketing's plate, but, you know, we believe that it's just as much of a sales activity as it is marketing. So to kick things off, I want everyone to just picture an event such as Dreamforce. You know, it's one of the biggest events. So I'm assuming you've either heard of it, maybe you've attended, or maybe you've even sponsored this event. One of the biggest trends in B2B software is to host an after party. Now, this makes total sense since it's a target-rich environment for companies like this. But I'd love to run through a scenario from both the guest and the host perspective to just kind of give you a sense of what it's like from a sales standpoint for one of these events. So picture it's a Monday morning and you're sitting at your desk and you're drinking your coffee. Dreamforce is about 3 weeks away and you're not even really thinking about it. An invite comes through your inbox. It comes from a company that you've never really heard about before. You're not even really sure why they're inviting you. So you go about your day. But there's a lot of companies out there that are doing this as well to prep for Dreamforce. So maybe you receive a couple more invites and one catches your eye. It's from a vendor that you've been with for the last 2 years. They've added a ton of value to your process. Maybe they have cut your win rate by 12%. Decrease your sales cycle by 20 days. And you also notice they're hosting a party with a vendor that you're evaluating. And maybe there's 4 more companies that you've never really heard of before, but okay, this looks like a good event. I'm going to register. So you register for the event, and a day or two goes by, you receive another invite. It's for the same party. And you think to yourself, well, I think I just registered for this event. Maybe I should contact my sales rep to see what's going on. So you pick up the phone, you call them up, you say, hey, Mike, just registered for this event 2 days ago that you guys are hosting. Pretty excited about it. Wondering if you could find me on the registration list. So Mike responds and says, you know what? Let me check. I'm not sure. I'm going to check with our sales and marketing ops team or maybe the event planner to see if you're on the list. I'll get right back to you. 2 days go by. Mike calls you back. Jim, good news. You're on the list. We're looking forward to seeing you. Sorry it took 2 days to get back to you. The reason for that, one of the other companies owns the registration, so we didn't know. But we're looking forward to seeing you. Great. So, you know, you're registered for the event. Dreamforce comes up. Spend a long day at the booth. You maybe go to some sessions, but you're really looking forward to attending this event that night. When you arrive to the event, huge line down the street. And the reason for this is they didn't really take a target approach about who they're going to invite to this event. It may look good, but to me as a customer and a prospect to these companies that are in there, I'm wondering what's going on. So finally get to the front of the line, and the poor person running the registration can barely make eye contact with you because they're either looking down at a spreadsheet or trying to find a name tag for you, or even better, which is classic, the CEO is standing behind them, tapping them on the shoulder saying, hey, can you let me know if X prospect is here? Or the VP of sales is there for the 5th time saying, hey, can you tell me if this prospect has arrived? So you finally get into the door, and it's a crowded space. You're looking around for some familiar faces to potentially go and engage with the companies that you know. You spot a group of sales reps in the corner all wearing their startup T-shirts and most likely cursing marketing because they feel as though there are no prospects there for them to engage with, so you decide to go grab a beer at the bar. You get your beer and you say, you know what, I'm here. I wanted to talk to one of these people from the company that I've been using their product for the last few years, and I'd love to engage with the company that I'm in the middle of an evaluation with. So you walk up to the group and you kind of break up their session, and you get to the sales rep that you've been working with. You have a great conversation with that person. They even bring in one of their sales engineers to answer a couple of your questions. The problem is that the sales rep has no real good way of capturing the information that was collected during that conversation so that after the event, they can take the time to follow up with context. Another thing that happens here is I'm a customer of one of these companies that's hosting the event. There's a huge opportunity for this company, if they know I'm there, to have me in front of their prospects and do the selling for them. And because they don't know I'm there and it's so busy, and I've got another event that I'm headed to afterwards, and I'm tired because it's been Dreamforce activities all day, I decide I'm heading out. After that, you've got the follow-up. You have sales reps who just spent the entire night, probably had one or two many drinks and a ton of conversations. They are now expected to follow up with these prospects. The problem is they have a pocket full of business cards, maybe some notes on the conversation that they had, but no real good way of remembering how to follow up with this prospect. So they sit at their desk the next day. If they're a good sales rep, they jot down a few notes into Salesforce or whatever CRM they're using to follow up with their prospects accordingly. Hopefully this scenario sounds familiar to people either from when they've attended an event or even if they're a sales rep at an event or a marketing professional or a customer success manager. So I just wanted to paint a picture of a very typical scenario of how an event is typically run and how the customer or prospect feels when they're attending an event like that. So you sit back, a couple weeks go by, and an email lands in your inbox. It's pretty generic, thanking you for the invite. You might get a call from one of the sales reps. They thank you for going, but there's really no context behind the follow-up. No idea what you talked about and how they could have potentially progressed the deal to the next stage. This is something that we see all too often.
Absolutely. And what's interesting, coming from the marketing perspective, despite all of these common issues that are happening in and around the type of, the events that we're hosting, the reality is that marketers are still investing a good chunk of their annual program budget on in-person events. In fact, according to a recent Gartner report, events are one of the most influential B2B marketing activities. And what's really interesting from this report as well is the fact that top 3 most effective ways to influence purchase decisions are centered around events. And that's because events facilitate direct interaction between the buyer and seller. They provide the perfect opportunity for advocacy, and they also, of course, help with pipeline acceleration. So no matter how you slice and dice it, there's nothing that replaces face-to-face interaction in the buyer's journey. But what's really interesting is that while the majority of marketers are investing more in events, the minority of them are using an event management platform or event technology. In the U.S. alone, marketers are projected to spend $100 billion on events in 2015, yet sub 1% of that spend is dedicated to event technology. If you compare that to the other areas of the MarTech stack, which are arguably somewhat more mature, what's interesting is while they're supporting a lower overall marketing investment, people are investing a larger portion of those budgets to MarTech. And the companies that are using event technology, a lot of them are actually just using a registration platform or a check-in tool when there's a huge opportunity there to streamline the process, to make it easier for yourself with some of the more robust tools that are out there today. Jim will actually just be spending a minute or two at the end talking about what you need to think about when investing in event tech. So let's talk about the real opportunity here. I mean, we heard from Jim about what not to do at an event, particularly from a prospect's perspective, hearing about his experience as a buyer at an event and kind of I think there's some great takeaways there on things that we should be thinking about. But the reality is that events cannot be successful without marketing and sales working together with a common goal in mind. So I'm going to spend the next couple of slides talking about are some best practices that we've seen around marketing at events. So going back to the research, what do we know? The data shows, and this is actually according to Event Tech's annual report, is that events are one of the world's fastest growing forms of marketing for both prospect and customer engagement. And the majority of organizations surveyed agree that their event strategy includes goals for both the marketing team, which is typically in terms of, let's say, new MQLs or new SALs, and then also goals for the sales organization around pipeline acceleration. As a result, it's no surprise that event budgets are increasing and money is actually being moved from other areas of the business into these programs. But what's interesting, and one thing that I've definitely seen in my experience is that many marketers are kind of stuck in the traditional B2B event funnel, and they're focusing too much of their efforts on sort of top of the funnel events, which are really more on sort of lead gen, name acquisitions, things like trade shows, community events, or arguably even broader launches. And they're also focusing a little bit on some of the pipeline acceleration events, but it's typically not the main focus that I've found for a lot of marketers today. And where there's a real opportunity actually for both marketing and sales is to, and I think this is absolutely true for any of the demand generation, revenue focused marketers that are out there, you need to essentially flip the funnel on your event strategy and take what's becoming more of a popular account-based marketing approach and focus on expanding your number of business development events that help you accelerate pipeline, doing more educational events, which again are another great pipeline tool, and then even advocacy events that are related to engaging with your customers and helping your customers do selling on your behalf. So now we're actually going to talk a little bit about some best practices related to that. And so I'll go a little bit deeper on some best practices on why you should sort of stop, renting your events and stop doing as many industry trade shows. I mean, it's what I've actually noticed as a trend. I recently went to a marketing executive event a couple of weeks ago. What was interesting is that a lot of even the CMOs in the room were saying that they're consciously making a decision in 2016 to spend less money on industry events and to invest more money in their field marketing events, because that's really where they're seeing the business drivers come from. And so here's why they're investing less in industry events, and why I think we all need to stop renting our events. One of the biggest reasons is if you're sponsoring a trade show, you have less control whether the attendees are actual prospects of yours. You're also exposing your prospects to your competitors that are present in the room. I think the biggest loss here is that you lose the opportunity to really collect valuable data about the folks that are in the room, because you're at the mercy of who will actually meet with you on site or who will stop by your booth. I mean, even if you have the list beforehand, you're sort of at the mercy of the agenda and your prospect's willingness to actually stop by and say hello. And as a result, you're really left with a distracted attendee attention because of every other company in the room, every other MarTech company that's in the room that may not be a direct competitor, but you're all sort of vying for one piece of the MarTech budget.
And Courtney, I think this also can apply. This also applies to the after parties that we're seeing here at a lot of these industry events. It's not necessarily that they're run by one, maybe two companies. What we've seen as a trend over the last few years is there could be 5, 6 vendors that are actually hosting this particular event, and so it applies to those events as well.
That is so true, and I mean, I'm with you, and when I get invitations to those events where it's 4, 5, 6 vendors hosting a cocktail party or hosting a dinner, I often think like they're selling my information. The one vendor that I'm actually engaged with is just basically throwing me to the wolves so that every other vendor can sort of get their hands on me. And so, just from a prospect's view, it's not always the best experience if you're attending these events with multiple vendors kind of attacking you. And so that actually just lines up nicely the point that I'm trying to make here, which is the power of owning your events. That doesn't mean that you can't do partner events, and that we've actually found it very beneficial to align with a strategic partner that is we have a really strong story to tell together, or our technology works well together, and making sure that we have a transparent and streamlined process for how we're managing those events. But arguably, the most effective events are the ones that you own and the ones that you own yourself. And the reason why is, I think it's pretty obvious, but it's because you have the ability to target your invitations to the people that you want in the room. You also, of course, can keep people out of the room that you don't want there. And then you can empower your salespeople to focus all of their time and energy on collecting the data that they need about the prospects that are in the room, whether it's a net new prospect or it's someone that's already in the pipeline. And of course, if you own your event, you own those people's time, you own their attention. And so what's great about that is, of course, you can control the messaging. If you want to do a presentation, you can control that, or at least just control the brand, your brand at the event. So what's the solution?
Yeah, and so I think for this, right, if you can go back to the original scenario where you're at an industry event and it's a target-rich environment, and the goal really is to engage with your customers and prospects. What's the best way to go about that from a sales standpoint, from a marketing standpoint, from a customer success standpoint? So that's what we'd like to cover here over the next couple minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And, we hear this term a lot, but, I think we hear it a lot because it's extremely important. It's marketing, right? So we need to align sales and marketing around events. And the way to do that is to get your sales team, your customer success team, and your executives involved in the process as early as possible. So create a task force. When you're planning for this event, make sure that everybody in the company that's customer-facing is aligned with the goal of the event. Get together in a room and make sure everybody understands what you're trying to accomplish at that event. Analyze your pipeline. Take a look at your new business and your renewals, and make sure that you're getting the people that are engaged prospects or customer advocates or renewals that are at risk, whatever that might be, invited to this event. And quality over quantity is what we're seeing as the most effective strategy here. And another thing that you want to do is get your team involved with the invite process as soon as possible. Empower your sales and your customer success team to feel as though they're part of the planning and getting the right people to the event. What we suggest and what we practice and some of our customers practice is before the invitation even goes out, once that task force has decided who they're going to invite, get that list to the team that owns the relationship with the customer or the prospect and have them reach out personally and invite that person. Let them know why you're hosting the event and why you'd like them to be there. From there is when you put the invitation together and you send it out. And here's where I think it's really important. Everyone that's been involved in this process needs full visibility into the RSVP responses. It's not good enough anymore to send out a spreadsheet once a week or even once a day for that matter to understand who's going to be going to this event. You've targeted these people. You understand who you want to go. You need to do everything you can to make sure that they're in that room. So give them as much real-time visibility as you possibly can to the RSVPs. Use Salesforce campaigns. Send out an email as frequently as possible or use event technology to do it.
Mm-hmm. And actually related to that, so I know in my past, life as an event manager in my career, one of my biggest challenges was, particularly I used to manage our my company's annual customer event that had about 300 attendees, and our CEO was rabid about wanting to know which of our enterprise customers, because at the time I was looking for a company that sold six-figure deals and up. I mean, we had customers who were paying us millions of dollars annually. So every single customer that was going to be there was, an important part of our revenue stream. And so he wanted a daily spreadsheet of not only who had RSVP'd for the event in the months leading up to the customer event, but also who owned them, sort of relevant data coming out of Salesforce. And so it became this huge headache just managing essentially the CEO through that whole process and making sure that he was informed in the weeks and months leading up to the event. And then it got even worse on site because he would literally be standing behind me for the majority of the kind of beginning of the event, breathing down my neck, asking me if, so-and-so customer had checked in or if they had arrived. And I never had any, I would have insight because I would have checked it off on my spreadsheet, but I had no idea what they looked like. So it was always such a headache and such a stress. And I think there's a huge opportunity to make that experience something, take that experience from the manual process and actually putting it not only in your rep's hands on their phone, but putting it in your CEO's hands so that he can, with the click of a button, actually see who's RSVP'd for the event. It's a game changer.
So now that you've identified who you want to get there, Your team is rallied around it. They've done a great job of getting people to the event. This is your chance to engage. This is your chance to maximize one of the most important and influential B2B marketing activities that are out there. So you need to empower your team to understand is at the event. And so, we recommend getting sales involved in the check-in process because they're the ones, and it doesn't have to just be sales, by the way. It can be customer success. It can be executives. But get them involved and get them to understand who's in the room because that is ultimately what is going to make them excited about being there and having these conversations. So, we recommend using technology, but I can tell you that we have some customers that have done some really creative things, such as printing out name badges ahead of time and giving them to the sales rep who owns the relationship. And the field marketer will walk that person over to the sales rep when they arrive. The sales rep greets that person, makes them feel as though they are important, that they should be there, hands them their name badge, and wind up having a really good conversation. But from there, you need to make sure that your sales, customer success, and executives are being responsible enough to capture the conversations that they're having at these events. So many times I've seen opportunities lost over the fact that somebody just flat out doesn't remember what they talked about because they had 4 or 5 or 6 or 7, 20 conversations. So make sure you're capturing meaningful notes, getting that back into your CRM as quickly as possible so you can have a meaningful follow-up. So you can do really cool things here, right? Some companies that I've been talking to recently, they use gamification as part of it. They're incenting their reps to not have more conversations, but more importantly, to capture those conversations, get it back into Salesforce so that whoever owns the follow-up is armed with the information that they need so that it's not a generic follow-up. It's not a, hey, I just noticed you attended this event. Thank you. And it just goes silent on the other end of the phone. And then afterwards, it's crucial to have a timely and, more importantly, meaningful follow-up. I can't tell you how many times I've attended an event and days, weeks go by, somebody finally follows up, and there's just no context behind the follow-up. As Courtney put here, personalization is not just a buzzword, it's a business driver. It's true. So, as a sales rep, you need to be thinking about these events in a strategic way. You need to buy into them early, often, engage with your prospects, listen to your prospects while you're at the event, capture that information, and follow up with a meaningful, contextual phone call, email, whatever it might be, so that you can continue to move those prospects through the sales cycle. So, Courtney, do you want to take this one?
Sure. Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about what to look for in a revenue-focused event platform. And, one of the things that I think is critical just from a marketing perspective is to find technology that can help you easily and effortlessly set up registration and then facilitate check-in at your event. It's also critical to partner with a company that can help you set up VIP alerts so that, your CEO can receive a text message no matter where they are, whether it's in the bathroom or at the bar, that your key prospect or their key prospect and customer has shown up. Finding something that syncs into your CRM and Salesforce, leveraging a revenue acceleration app just along the lines of what Jim was talking about, one that can help you record the conversations that you're having, take notes, and sync that back into Salesforce to help not only facilitate the follow-up in a faster fashion, but actually help you be smarter about your follow-up and help you have that personalization when you're talking to your prospects is just critical, because I don't know about you, but there's no way I can recall 10 or 15 conversations that I've had in one evening and recall every single detail about that conversation or about that person. And so just having the ability to take those notes within an app and then sync that back into Salesforce so that it's waiting for me either later that night or the very next morning is just a tremendous, help in the process. And also, I think another thing that's really critical, particularly for marketers, is just working with event technology that gives you the ability to measure event ROI in a meaningful way. I think one of the hardest things that our marketing customers have found is the ability to actually measure the effectiveness of events. And a lot of that goes back to the ability to actually capture information correctly and make sure that everything that happens at the event is being logged correctly in Salesforce. So that's certainly one aspect of it. But there's, I think, tremendous value in working with event technology that helps you to better measure your return on investment so that you can justify your budget for the next quarter or the next year. And really just in conclusion, I just wanted to mention that at Attend, we work with a number of great, B2B companies, and we're helping them really accelerate their revenue and accelerate their pipeline at events, at all different types of events, whether it's their field marketing events or their customer conferences. And so just in conclusion, Jim, do you want to take this, or would you like me to finish it up?
Yeah. So, just to wrap it up here before we go into some Q&A, really, I think the focus for a revenue-focused event is it has to be targeted. Get buy-in from customer success, sales, and executives as early as possible and involve them in the process as soon as possible. The next thing, use technology to keep your team informed. Make sure that everybody is completely aligned with who's going to be at the event. And when you're at the event, who is actually in the room so that you can engage with everyone that you spent all that time targeting to get to the event. From there, I think this is something that is extremely important. When you have customers in the room with prospects, leverage customer advocates. Use them to help you sell your product. There's nobody better than your customers when it comes to talking about how they use their technology. Believe me, your prospect wants to hear from your customer more than they want to hear from your sales rep. So find a way to leverage your customer advocates. And then from there, just make sure you have a solid process in place. Work with your sales operations team to make sure that you create a process so that everything that happens at that event, all conversations that occur, those are recorded to get back into your CRM so your sales team has the context they need for a timely and meaningful follow-up. It's crucial. You're going to see an increase in pipeline. You're going to decrease your sales cycle. You're going to see customers renew at a higher rate when you engage with people at events and you actually follow up in a meaningful way. And then from there, it's just really, like I mentioned, follow up in a timely fashion. So I think from here, maybe Courtney can just point you to a couple of resources, then we'll do some Q&A.
Yeah, sounds great. So this is what, as Jim mentioned, we actually have a bunch of great resources in the resources section of our website that are designed to help marketers and salespeople run better events. So we have an ROI calculator, our event handbook, and our event hacker guide. So just wanted to mention those if anyone's interested in a copy. And with that, I will hand it over to Richard to see if there are any questions.
Hey, Courtney. Yes, I'm here. Sorry, everybody. I had some technical issues. My phone decided to turn off right as I was supposed to turn on the webinar. So my name is Richard Harris. I am the Director of Sales Training and Consulting over at Sales Hacker. For those people who are interested in that service, you can always reach out to me at richard@saleshacker.com. But let's get back to this, and thank you, Jim and Courtney, for a really awesome presentation. I went to a couple of events at Dreamforce and some other ones recently, and that line thing drives me nuts. It's like it's 2015 people. Like, it's not like I need to check into an airplane, right? Like, they don't need to check my ID. There's got to be a better way. So I'm really glad you guys are really tackling this issue head on. And it's one of those little things that absolutely means a lot. It really does. So a couple of questions that have started to come in. What are some of the trends you're seeing, as we move into 2016, as it comes into event marketing? What are you guys seeing or hearing? I mean, clearly you guys are definitely in the space, leaders in the space. What are you guys seeing on the horizon?
I think from a sales perspective, I think that what we're seeing, especially with a lot of our customers, is this movement away from brand-focused events and more over to field events, customer road shows, getting in front of your customers and prospects. Maybe scaling back, as Courtney kind of mentioned in her presentation, on these larger industry events, and making sure that you're getting your sales team, your customer success team, and your field marketers in front of these prospects who are in your pipeline and they're engaged. So it's just another crucial touch point during this entire customer life cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Sorry about that again. Technical issues on my end. One of the things that's happening, this sort of leads right into that last question that came in. Account-based marketing, right? Like, that's all the rage. That's like, how do I tackle this account? And I remember, doing that kind of stuff a long time ago before the new word came out this week of account-based marketing. But let's talk about events in terms of account-based marketing, because I think that's a really important piece. How do you guys see that sort of affecting the event status and the account-based marketing approach and those kinds of things?
That's a great question. And go ahead, Jim.
Go ahead, Courtney. No, go ahead, Courtney.
Okay. It's a great question. I mean, there's absolutely a huge opportunity to align your event strategy with your account-based marketing strategy. I'm sure I talked a little bit about it in the presentation, but the whole idea of sort of flipping your funnel and making pipeline acceleration and customer advocacy some of your top goals as a marketer, events can play a huge part of that strategy. So I absolutely think that there's alignment in doing more business development events and events where you're leveraging your customers to advocate on your behalf if you're focusing on ABM.
Cool. Okay, there's a couple of questions that are coming in, and there's a bunch of questions, so this is really cool. These kind of go together, so I'll kind of ask them. Well, I will ask them together, and then you guys can jump in on how to answer it. It sounds like people are curious about, well, how big do I need to be as an organization to use something like Attend? How many events a year does a company need to have to really see value out of Attend? How big? How many attendees need to be at events? Like, where do you guys, are there metrics, I guess, might be the best question. What are the metrics you look at as an organization as you're reviewing an Attend or an event marketing platform? What are you guys seeing? Obviously you had some great customers, some names we all know, and then I'm sure there's some none of us recognize, which is fair too. How do you guys see that? What are the metrics you're looking for?
Well, I think, for us, it's our events a strategic part of your marketing plan, right? And what we're seeing is that's becoming more and more of a trend. I think it's always been a part of an organization's marketing budget. Obviously, there's big spend there, but is it a strategic initiative to engage your prospects and your customers in a better way, to get in front of them, to have great conversations, right? So, I mean, we're seeing this are companies. It doesn't really matter the size of the company. It more boils down to companies that are looking for, first and foremost, making events a big part of their strategic initiatives, and then second, how do we do this in a smarter way? How do we maximize this very important touch point throughout the customer life cycle to engage these customers and prospects? And if they're looking for that, yeah.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Nope, I'm done.
All right. So another question's coming in, and it's a little bit more on the sales side, and you may have touched a little bit on it. And there's actually two questions. One is, okay, so I'm a sales rep. How do I better strategize? I am that person, in that T-shirt, right? And hopefully we have more attendees than what you showed in that picture. But I'm a sales rep. How do I use this at my level, on my way, to make my job better, to make sure that I talk to those 2 or 3 prospects are there, or get them to match with those customers of mine that are also at the event? Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So you got to look at an event just the way you would look at a discovery call or a demo, right? You got to do your homework. Who are the people who are going to be attending that event? So review your notes in Salesforce. Understand exactly where they are in the sales cycle. Who are the other key players? What information have they asked from you in the past? How are they engaging with your content? How are they engaging with you on social media? Really understand that you have to do that before the event, right? If you're not doing that before the event, you have about maybe 3, 4, or 5 minutes to talk to this person. If you're lucky, especially at a busy event, you got to maximize that touch point. So do your homework ahead of time, and definitely make sure that when that person arrives, you are alerted to the fact that they're in the room, so that you get that chance to have a really meaningful conversation.
Cool. So just out of curiosity, and I don't know if the tool does this yet or it's on the roadmap, but are push notifications coming? Let's say I'm a sales rep, right? And I've got 4 clients who are there, plus I've got 3 prospects coming in. Am I getting a push notification like you guys? Is it going to sort of pop up different cards like a passbook, so I can quickly go, within the app and attend and go, oh, here's so-and-so, and here's their opportunity in Salesforce, and here's a link to, maybe some Twitter stuff. Are you guys at that stage of the game, or is that where this is all headed?
I should have you sit down with our product manager. So no, some of this stuff it exists today, but
Good.
We are thinking along those lines, right? So we're connected to Salesforce. Obviously, we're connected to our own platform. We're connecting to marketing automation to provide salespeople with as much of this information in our app as we possibly can to prepare them for that conversation. So yeah, today you can get alerts that say that particular attendee has arrived, and in the coming months, there's going to be even more context behind that notification.
That to me is critical. That's great. How do you? This is another interesting question that's coming in. Is that so you're a VP of marketing, right? And again, I don't know the cost of your tool, and I'm not asking you to disclose it, but how do you get the sales team excited about this kind of tool? And how do you get the VP of sales to help support it from a budget perspective? I wonder if something like this might be one of those, the Marketos of the world, and those things are, those are now becoming must-haves, right? And the attend stuff is getting there. How do you get marketing and sales aligned on this? Because that's also always a big challenge, right? Who gets which tool, right? Any feedback on that?
Yeah, sure. So, I think that we look at this as a sales and marketing alignment tool, and you want to be having the conversations with the head of sales and the head of marketing. And for a head of sales, it's simple, right? It's giving your sales reps, enabling your sales reps to maximize this touch point to get in front of a customer or a prospect and have the best conversation that you can possibly have, but not just that, to follow up and get them to the next stage of of your sales cycle. There's a huge opportunity here for companies that are thinking about events strategically, but unless you have sales completely behind it and involved with it, it's just not going to work.
Makes total sense. That's great. So, just out of curiosity, so obviously, let's say Sales Hacker had Sales Stack last week, and let's say we use a tool like this. What would the attendees, right, of the event have experienced, right? What kind of feedback are you getting from those people? Are your customers saying, "Oh my God"? Obviously the customers are saying certain things. Can the attendees notice on the other side that not necessarily that attend is helping create this efficiency, but is there an experience that the attendee gets slightly better because of something like an attend?
I'll jump in, Jim, and then would love
Sure.
your thoughts too. But I mean, absolutely. So even just from a marketing side, we've heard from our customers that their attendees love the fact that one, it's something as simple as like the line to check in is gone. It's huge.
Yay!
So just
Yay!
the check-in process. Yeah, and we also, I think it goes back to, I wouldn't say that, other than sort of the check-in, and then, we have some cool tools for printing name badges. Those are things that the attendees might be most aware of. But I will say that one thing that we've heard from our customers is not so much that they're like, wow, that Attend app is so cool, but more like, wow, you're actually having meaningful follow-up with me, and the context of your follow-up is so much richer because I feel like you actually heard what I was saying during our conversation. And so we're empowering our customers to further their conversations with their prospects and customers and accelerate pipeline by helping them to have smarter conversations, not only on site, but then as part of the follow-up process. So those are we've absolutely heard as feedback.
Great. Well, thank you very much. That actually kind of is reaching sort of the end of the questions. We're at about 10 minutes to the hour. Obviously, Jim and everybody over there. How can people get in touch with you guys? Like, what's your phone number? Before everybody starts to hang up on the webinar.
Great question. So, of course, attend.com. This is the easiest way to find us. But I'm Courtney at Attend, so just my first name, at attend.com. Would love to hear from anyone that's joined us today, and thank you everyone for your time. I really appreciate it. And
that's it. Same here. You can reach me at jim@attend.com. Please find me on LinkedIn. Happy to connect and talk further about this. And hopefully this was helpful for everyone.
And thank you, everybody, for attending another really fun and exciting Sales Hacker webinar. We appreciate it. Attend. Thank you guys for joining us. It's always good to talk and work with you guys on a regular basis. Again, if folks do need to get a hold of me, you can always reach me at richard@saleshacker.com. And I hope everybody has a happy and safe travel time and Thanksgiving and a good holiday season. And, of course, let's crush the number through the end of the year. Take care, everybody.
Thanks,
you.
Richard.